Thank you everyone for joining this morning. The Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting will commence. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaquero,
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Ryan, Alderwoman Evans, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Here.
Chairman Cone,
Present.
Alderman Boyd, Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Present.
Alderman Ryan, Alderwoman Evans. 5 present, you have quorum.
Great. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you to all those in attendance. Appreciate it. I believe I mentioned before the meeting, but I'll mention it for the record. Alderman Boyd did ask to be excused for today's meeting due to necessary absence. I know that there was a conflict on the calendar originally with respect to the HUD's meeting being scheduled. That has since been rescheduled for tomorrow. So hopefully some of our other colleagues that might have been planning to participate in that meeting will be able to join us for the TNC meeting this morning. I'll go through the agenda here. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We've got minutes from Tuesday, May 25th. Is there a motion that we approve the meeting?
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes from the Tuesday, May 25th meeting.
Is there a second? I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaquero,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan, Alderwoman Evans, Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Chairman Cone.
Aye.
5 aye votes.
Great. With your motion, you sustained, or with that vote, you sustained the approval of the minutes from the May 25th meeting. We'll dive into our agenda. We've got a rather lengthy agenda this morning, a number of board bills pertaining to the airport and also to the Port Authority. I know that there's staff from the airport on the line. I don't see any at the moment from the Port Authority. Oh, yes, I do. But we'll go ahead and get started with, I believe it's board bill number 1. And that is Alderman Jack Coatar. He actually texted me this morning asking if the Port Authority could handle his board bills, but I see him on the line, so I'll give him the opportunity to do a quick introduction, and if he needs to step off, we can let the Port Authority staff continue with the presentation of the bill.
Just as board bill number 11, not number 1, right?
Correct, item number 1. I'm sorry. Thank you. Board bill number 11.
Item 1, board bill 11. I don't think I have the budget here in committee, or we're really in trouble. Chairman, I appreciate your consideration, and I'm going to defer to Port Authority staff. I apologize. I'm multitasking this morning. I've had a colleague with a family emergency and have to cover his court docket. So if it's all right with the chairman, I will defer to Port Authority staff. I think both of my bills are simple lease renewals for some port space.
Great. Mr. Ray.
I think Mr. Ray or Mr. Morrow, I believe the city councilor was involved in this.
Either one. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, Chairman, I will. I've got a note into Susan Taylor as well from the Port Authority. If it's all right with you, if you could maybe defer mine until later, I will try to track someone from staff down.
I will be happy to do that. We'll just go.
Thank you, Chairman.
With the airport bills for the moment.
Okay.
Got to switch screens here for a minute. So it looks like item number 2 is 2, 3, 4, 5 are all Port Authority bills. Item number 6 is a Port Authority. Item number 7 looks like it's a Port Authority bill. Item number 8, Board Bill number 45, is a lease agreement, handling the lease agreement with Southwest Airlines for the airport. We'll go ahead and allow the airport director to speak on this, and then provide opportunity to staff from the airport to expound upon it further if necessary.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. We have Board Bill 45 to present this morning. Rob Salarano from our Properties Department will present this. It is a lease with Southwest Airlines. So Rob, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, Alderman and Alderwoman. We're requesting your approval today for a lease agreement with Southwest Airlines. This is for cargo buildings 4A and 5A in our Cargo City complex, which is just to the east of Terminal 2. The space is used for ground service equipment maintenance for Southwest Airlines, and the other building that they rent is used for belly cargo services. The agreement is 5 years, and either party may terminate upon 1 year's notice. Revenue to the city is $127,126.89 annually, and those are at standard Cargo City rates, which are negotiated with the airlines as part of the airport use and lease agreement. We respectfully request your approval of this lease agreement with Southwest Airlines.
Great. The clerk sent out that had signed up for various board bills for today's hearing. There is no one from the public that had signed up to speak in favor or opposition to this board bill. So no need to take public questions at this time, but we'll go through the list of the committee. Vice Chair.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans. I think that she's on the line. I know she's here.
Yes, here.
Alderwoman Evans, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay.
And can you speak a little louder? I can hear everyone, but for some reason I'm having a little trouble hearing. It's this computer that I have.
Sure. How is this?
A little better.
Okay. I don't want to make out with my laptop here. My best to speak up a little louder.
Okay.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I see Alderwoman Ingracia. I know you're not a member of the committee, but do you have any questions?
I don't, Mr. Chair, thank you.
All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion on the board bill that's before us.
I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 45 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll, but there might be an objection because we got new people.
Yeah, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, Alderman Vaquero, that's Board Bill 15, not 45.
It says Board Bill 45 on the agenda.
The agenda says Board Bill 45.
Sorry, well, maybe I'm confused. We're on item 8.
Item 8.
Item 8, Board Bill 45.
Thank you for correcting me. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaquero.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Cone.
Aye.
And just for my own, I don't even see a 15 on the agenda. Is this one 15 and just labeled wrong?
No, it's Board Bill number 45.
Okay. Okay.
So There is a board bill number 15. It's item number 2. It's sponsored by.
Oh, yeah, you know, it's part of that whole counting thing.
That was a Port Authority bill, so we skipped over it.
That's when we skipped.
Yeah.
But
okay, so I do not see Susan Taylor on the line, but are Mr. Morrow or did Mr. Thomas? Oh, he's there. We'll go ahead and get started with the Port Authority bills. I'd like to thank the members of the staff from the airport for their time this morning. I think that's all the board bills that we have before us pertaining to the airport at this point. So we'll schedule another meeting if necessary to consider any further actions on behalf of the airport. But I think that's on the agenda for today. So thank you all for your time, and we'll move forward with the bills pertaining to the Port Authority.
Thank you.
So we'll.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom Ray. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm gonna have to switch over to a different computer. So just give me a second if you would, please.
Sure. Is anyone else having difficulty hearing me?
Yeah, Shane, you started out strong, but for some reason it got very weak.
Okay. I'll lean in a little further.
I'll
Okay.
be kissing my computer.
Yeah. It's very awkward for my back, but I'll make it work for the morning. So we'll go ahead and move forward once Mr. Ray is able to join us again. Oh, I see him back on the line. So Alderwoman Middlebrook, you have item number 2, which is board bill number 15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Board Bill 15 is to authorize a lease agreement with Centerpoint Terminal Company, which is a Delaware limited liability company for a period of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options for the purpose of berthing barges for unloading petroleum products at an annual base rent of $18,450 with a 2% annual escalator for the first 10 years. It's near Mullanphy and Mound Street, and it's for a total of 600 linear feet. And I think it's Thomas right here to answer any questions.
Mr. Ray, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now, Alderman?
You're good.
Good. All right.
Do you mind introducing yourself for those that aren't familiar?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tom Ray. I'm with the firm of Armstrong Teasdale, and I'm outside counsel to the Port Authority.
Great, thank you. And the Alderwoman asked a question or deferred questions to you. We'll go through the, do you have anything that you'd like to say about the board bill in particular before I take questions from the committee?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Vice Chair Vaccaro.
Thomas, Tom, is this an existing company that's there?
Centerpoint is there, yes, that's correct.
And is this an increase from their previous, like, I guess, is this a renewal like their other ones coming up to an end now?
Alderman, this is a new lease with Centerpoint. There was an existing lease with them, and it is at an increased rate.
And how much of an increase?
Well, unfortunately, I can't get to my other computer because of this, so I can't. James, you happen to know the numbers on this? James Morrow is with me. He's inside he's with the city councilor's office.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Yes, this is James Moore with the City Councilor's Office representing the Port Authority. I believe the lease is an increase of an extra couple $1,000s a year. It brings their rate up to about market rate.
So so it's an increase of probably $2,000 a year with a 2% increase per year. And it's a new lease. What was the existing lease going out? Like,
Yes, yes, the existing lease is expired.
Okay. Okay, and okay, I don't think I have any other questions. I just was curious.
Okay. Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just have a couple of questions, and part of this is just as being new to the committee and new to looking over these leases. One, I'm curious on page 28, I think this is under the representations regarding mooring. It says annually the lessee presents to the Port Commission a marine survey of safety of the facilities. Is that something that we've been collecting under the previous lease?
Yes.
Okay, so we keep those on record.
Well, we've had that in our leases for many years, and generally they file them. Sometimes they don't, but the new port director has established that she wants those as it says.
Okay, great. And then my general question is, as we've got a variety of these that we're looking at today, and they're similar, but I'm just curious, does the city have just do we have a streamlined process for these lease agreements? They all look like maybe they've been drafted by different law firms over the years, and I didn't know if there was any attempt to try and kind of come up with a consistent format for these things, just as somebody trying to read through all of these today. I'm just curious what the background is, and if all of these contain the same terms, they're just laid out differently, or if they all get negotiated differently. Can you just give us a little bit of background?
Sure. Yeah. There were many. I started working for the Port Authority back in 1981 as a city councilor, and we had a form back then. It was like a 2-page form that set forth the purpose of the lease, the property that was involved, and the amount. And then they had what was called the standard provisions, which unfortunately no one really knows where they came from, but they were about a 25-page document that was appended to all the leases. In fact, there was an ordinance that you had to append those to all the leases. When the new port director took over, and after we did a negotiation about 6 years ago with the Municipal River Terminal when I was retained, we started redoing these leases in a more modern format. So what you're seeing, to go even further back, there was a provision in the law, there still is, that there were minimum rates, very like 0.075 or $7.50 a linear foot, 0.075 a square foot. And those rates went up every 5 years by the Board of Aldermen by way of a resolution, 15 or 25%. Those rates were very low. The new port director had a study done, and we determined that there should be an amount of about $3,000 per barge. That was a fair market value like a couple of years ago when we did it. And we began negotiations with a lessee who objected to that because her theory was she wanted to have the Corps of Engineers give you the number of barges that could be on a site mooring and multiply that by 3,000. And the lessee at that time objected because if you had 1 or 2 more barges and they broke loose, his insurance wouldn't cover it. They get in trouble with the Coast Guard. So we went to a linear foot. That linear foot then was mathematically determined to be a square footage amount. So we now have what I would suggest is a more fair market value. The new leases, when they start like this one, Centerpoint, you're going to see this format going forward. Some of them still have a couple years to go. So when we come up on a milestone, like every 5 years, when a mutual option comes up, we negotiate an increased rate, but we can't change the form of the lease substantially because they object and they want the old form. So that's why you're seeing this mix. Ultimately, you will see a new format 2021 and beyond, as opposed to 1981. We got a little bit more sophisticated in 40 years, I guess is one way of saying it.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you. That's actually very, very helpful. I appreciate it. I did notice some of the other leases have maps included in them. So I would just put a plug in. If we could include a map, that would help us see, where are we talking about here on the riverfront. But thank you for that background. That was great. And I have no further questions. Thanks for your work,
Okay.
Tom.
All right, thank you.
I'll just add to that as well. When I first joined the committee along with the vice chair, Alderman Vaquero, one of the things that we both observed at the time was that our lease rates were fairly low for the market. And one of the things that we asked of the Port Authority was to conduct that survey of what market rates were like for similar facilities and markets. And so that was 12 years ago that we started asking those questions, and it was a very eye-opening process to go through and certainly learn. And I know Susan Taylor has had many uncomfortable conversations with some of our leaseholders after the study was done. But we, at the time, Alderman Vaquero, myself, I believe Alderwoman Davis, and some others on the transportation committee were very much asking for that study to be done. So grateful that we're in a better place and we've got better legs to stand on when negotiating rates, because we know what's going on across the country. Who's next on the list here? Alderwoman Middlebrook, I don't think you have any questions about your own board bill. Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Cohn. Just one question. Just kind of looking over this, what if any environmental issues have we run into in the past with this facility?
None that I'm aware of. We have not. There is an environmental clause in the original lease that was written back in the 80s by an environmental lawyer that I had on my staff back in the city council's office. It was sufficient, but we did not do any phase ones. We did not do a phase one on this project. So to the best of our knowledge, there is nothing there. We have started to do a phase one with Terminal Railroad now. You'll see that coming up in a little bit, but otherwise we haven't got into the ground, so to speak.
Great, thank you, and no further questions.
Alderwoman Evans.
I have no questions at this time.
And Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. My only question is, how long have they been there before this 10-year lease?
25 years.
Okay.
The maximum amount, Alderwoman, under the charter is 25 years.
And that's the lease they had previously.
Correct.
And this new lease is including more space and they're doing some work on the property?
This lease, I think it's for the same space.
Okay.
At mooring.
Okay. I didn't know if they were adding something. If there's any changes to what they're doing.
Well, James, can you answer that question? Because I can't. I've only got this one computer working and I need two, so.
Yeah, I believe it's for the same linear feet.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Great. With that, I'll entertain a motion on the board bill before us.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion to pass Board Bill 15 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
In previous role, I believe, would work.
I believe it will as well. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 15 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Item number 3, Board Bill number 16, Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This board bill authorizes an amendment to Ordinance Number 68872, which ordinance authorized a new lease agreement with the city and Kiesel Company, a Missouri corporation, for land and mooring at or near Branch Street for a period of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options. And it authorizes a First Amendment to said lease agreement for the first 5-year mutual option for an increase in rent to $106,271 for 2021 with a 2% annual escalator. And Tom can answer any questions that anyone may have.
Great. We'll take questions on Board Bill number 16. Vice Chair Vaquero.
I really have no questions on that.
Okay. Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you. I just have the same question I had before, and I can't tell in here if there's anything in the representations. Are they up to date just in terms of any reports that they need to be providing to the city?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. No more further questions.
Alderman Orion.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans. Alderwoman Evans, any questions?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my computer. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions, thanks.
And I failed to recognize them earlier. I know they're not on the committee, but Alderwoman Ingracia.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to ask because we do have a lot on the agenda today. Do you have questions of any of the board bills before us this morning?
I don't think so. If you don't mind, I can just pop something in the chat if I do.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
And then Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. She might be live streaming on Facebook somewhere. Okay, so without any further questions, I'll entertain a motion on the board bill before us.
I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 16 out with a due pass recommendation.
It's a motion from the Alderman from the 23rd.
Second.
Previous roll.
Alderman from the 13th. There's a motion for previous roll. Is there an objection to previous roll? Seeing, hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 16 passes out of committee with a due pass recommendation. We'll take up Board Bill number 17, the next item on the agenda. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This board bill authorizes a new lease agreement with the City of St. Louis and Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis. This is a Missouri corporation for a period of 5 years with 4 5-year mutual options for the purpose of operation, construction, and maintenance of TRRA's railroad tracks at an annual base rate rent of $13,344.19 with an adjustment as provided in Ordinance Number 57933 for the first 5 years. And this is at or near Market and First Street and containing insurance and environmental and other related terms and conditions. And Tom can answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Questions from the committee, Alderman Vaquero.
Just the same, it's an existing lease. Are they at the end of their lease?
Alderman, this is Terminal Railroad. Railroads go back to a long time ago. And Terminal has some leases, a couple. They have about 8 arrangements, I'll call them letters. And we're trying to straighten these out. Some of them have, some of the documents, some of the.
I think James Bond has joined us.
I apologize. That's my phone. I muted it. So is there not a prior lease?
Well, that's what I'm trying to explain. There's a letter in the file signed by Comptroller Nolte that says if Terminal Railroad continues, it's not Terminal, it's a predecessor. If the railroad continues to pay monthly, they get to remain in their place. So what's happened is we began negotiating this about a year and a half ago. And there's an environmental issue that dragged it out. This one is governed by the standard provisions. So Alderman Navarro's question comes into play here. You're stuck with the reduced rate under the former rate limitation that the Board of Aldermen passed. And that's going to last for another 5 years. And then at that juncture, it'll be increased. But we have included a phase one, which has been done, and there is no evidence of any spillage. That's what their concern was. So it's a new lease, but it's well, let me say it this way. There's a new lease, but it's got an existing provision in there with respect to the old rate. So you're stuck with that for the next 5 years. But there are 8 of these, and this was the first one. They're under a permit now, and we're going to move to do the other 7 in due course.
Okay. I just didn't, because I hadn't seen anything that was more curious. I'm going to let it move on to someone else, but thank you.
Okay.
Great. Alderwoman Navarro.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Hold on. My computer's freezing up here. Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ray, is this the board bill that you said that you did the phase one on?
Yes.
And what did that phase one show here?
It showed nothing. There was no spillage.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Alderwoman Evans.
I have no questions at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. Can you tell me what triggered the investigation of a spillage? Were there reports of one, or how did that kind of come to be?
I think it was the port director's concern of just having a railroad and the potential of spill out there and the lack. I mean, these leases go back before we had our time on the earth together, probably with this committee. Railroad's been around a long time, as you probably know. And it just was a concern that they've been there, and what's there, I don't really know other than that what triggered it.
Okay.
They objected strenuously to doing any phase one of their property, which probably made it worse from her perspective. So then she decided she had to have it, and that's what dragged it on. And they finally had their board of directors agree to do it, and then it turned up with nothing. So we're going to keep pushing with the railroads.
That's one of those things where they've been around so long that the people who are running it have no idea what somebody did 60 years ago. And, they don't know that they want to find out that information. I feel like that kind of stuff happens all the time with these long lasting companies. That's really interesting. Thank you. So there's no requirement for any sort of like ongoing environmental management here, or is that?
Well, like I said, this is the first one we've done, and we had environmental provisions in there if we found it on all of our leases previously, but there wasn't any, I guess, active investigations to determine if anything was spilled. So this is kind of like a new thing with a new director, and I think we'll be moving towards this in the future.
Got it. Okay. So it's not a standard thing to put in environmental checking into the lease.
Well, we have environmental provisions in the standard provisions in the old leases. So if something was found there, they had to clean it up. But as I say, we didn't go out. I mean, other than drive by and look, we wouldn't know to see if anything was spilled there.
I hear you. So you're saying standard provision of the old leases. This is a new lease. So that is not a standard provision of the new lease?
Well, it is. It is because it's the railroad. Now, we haven't started it on the land leases in the other parts of the port district as of yet. But the old provision of the environmental are still in existence.
Okay. You think there's interest within the Port Authority to add environmental clause? I'm not sure if I'm using the words right, to the standard leases of the.
I think what we're going to do is upgrade the environmental provisions from whenever it was prior to my time, 1980. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, that's as you said, it's been 40 years.
Right.
So it might be time to update some of those things. All right, interesting. Great. And so I imagine these trains are moving everything that comes into the port. It's, anything from petroleum products to, okay, so absolutely everything that comes through is coming.
Right.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Great. Mr. A, I'm just curious as well, with the phase 1 environmental that was done, was that conducted by the railroads or was that conducted by SLDC and paid for by the railroad?
Was conducted by the railroad at their expense, and we received a copy of it.
So I guess further down the line, I think that this is about a 25-year lease agreement again. But in the event that for whatever reason they decide not to renew their lease in the future, which I mean, kind of hard to imagine at this point in time, given the necessity of railroads. But what measures can we do we trust the phase 1 report that they've provided? I mean, obviously it seems as though we do if we're bringing it forward today, but I just how are we ensuring the accuracy of that so that down the road we don't become liable for anything in the event that there's a change in leaseholders?
Well, the phase 1 was done by a firm that is acceptable in the industry. So my guess is it's kind of like calling it their credentials. These guys know what they're doing, is the way I would say it. It's not like me and you going out there with a shovel and doing it. I think it's reliable. And if there was a firm that wasn't acceptable to Susan, I'm sure she would have objected to it.
Yeah, I guess my concern isn't necessarily the firm, but the direction which the firm is given in order to conduct the tests, right? And so, you can pay any firm to go out and test my front yard, but if we're specifically looking for spillage in the backyard, they're not going to test that if I told them to, hey, test along the front yard kind of a thing. So, if we're testing along the tracks or testing along points of transfer or things of that nature, I mean, is all of that provided in the report that was made available to SLDC?
Yes, they phase 1 is pretty much a historical type thing that shows, was there ever like a gas station in your backyard where you would have tanks, but you could have spillage. So once you do that historical thing, you don't really do any borings unless it shows that you should go beyond the historical presence. I read the executive summary and it appeared to be the normal phase 1 to me. So I didn't have any objection to it. I'm sure Susan's smarter than me, and they got an environmental person over on their staff that would have reviewed it. So I feel confident that it was done correctly.
Okay. Okay. I see Alderman Page is with us as well. Alderman, do you have any questions for the staff?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Great. I will entertain a motion on Board Bill number 17.
Well, I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 17 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
It's been motioned by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 28th. There's been a motion for previous roll. Is there an objection to previous roll? Hearing, seeing no objection to previous roll, the Board Bill passes out with a due pass recommendation. Great. So we will take up item number 5, Board Bill number 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Board Bill 18 authorizes a new lease agreement with the City of St. Louis and Grossman Iron and Steel Company, which is a Missouri corporation known as Grossman, for a period of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options for the purpose of providing a turning radius for access to Grossman's adjacent facilities, parking Grossman's vehicles and storage at an annual base rent of $23,856 with a 2% annual escalator for the first 10 years. This is at or near 21 through 99 North Market and 14 North Market at 2226 North First Street. And Tom can answer any questions.
Great. We'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Vaquero.
I'm just, have they leased this previously then? Or is this something new? They're just now getting.
This is something new. 18 and 21 are interesting in that both Produce Row and Grossman are adjacent to your land. In this particular case, item 18, Board Bill 18, is a piece of property that you had a 99-year lease on and a warehouse was built. That lease expired and we tried to lease it about 20 years ago and it came for naught. We're now leasing it to SCF, the interior of the building. But Grossman is next door to number 5 Clinton and has been for many, many years. It's a scrap and iron recycling business. And they were using this property, as was Produce Row. And what happened was we went out there and said, you know, you should be paying us something. And they agreed to pay. And that's how we got where we are with this lease.
Okay, so we're just using it, but with no lease, no.
Right.
So we're just using it. Okay. Okay, so I guess this is a better deal then.
Better than nothing, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm jumping out then.
Alderwoman Navarro.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman or Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. My question is, if this company was using city land sort of for free, are there any other, how do you go about looking for situations in which that is happening to potentially be able to do this, you know, whenever anyone's using city land?
Well, the port direct, there was only one port director, Nick Nichols, for many, many years. And Susan Taylor came on and the two of them were co-directors, so to speak. I don't know that anybody ever rode the land, so to speak, to see. I know Nick went around on the wharf, but not up. And Nick was the kind of guy that believed that the city needed to thrive and therefore the port needed to thrive. And he was more concerned with that than getting, let's say, monies for leases. And Susan is taking a different approach, and she wants the city to thrive, the port to thrive, but she wants a fair market value for the leases. So Susan, upon Nick's demise, hired an individual, and he now kind of rides a circuit and looks for these kind of things. And we just happened to stumble across this when we were going to lease number 5 Clinton, and the lease expired, that we found Grossman squatting on our land, and across the street is Produce Row, and they're doing the same thing. So that's how this came about.
Yeah, I appreciate the mentality. You know, it's trying to keep things fair, but the city needs to get, you know, we need all the money we can get. So I appreciate that effort is being taken to make sure that, you know, companies are paying the amount they should for land they're using. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
I will entertain a motion on.
I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 18, do pass recommendation, previous roll.
Okay, so it's been motioned by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 13th, with a recommendation for previous roll. Is there an objection to previous roll? Hearing, seeing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number, I believe that was 17, passes out with the do pass recommendation.
That was 18.
18.
18, yes.
Thank you. 17 was the last one. Thank you. Bill number 18 passes out with the pass recommendation. We'll move on to item number 6, Board Bill number 21. Alderman Page, you've got the floor.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Very similar to Board Bill number 18, item number 5. This Board Bill authorizes a new lease This is not recurring. It is recurring going forward. A new lease agreement with the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis Produce Market Incorporated, a Missouri corporation, for a period of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options for the purpose of parking the lessee's customers' vehicles and trucks. An annual rent rate of $11,427.40 with a 2% annual escalator for the first 10 years. And this is located at 2901 Hall Street in the city of St. Louis. Having introduced this bill and looked at it thoroughly for the opportunity to capture revenue for city coffers, I'm in full support of this bill for the benefit of the city of St. Louis. I'd be happy to entertain questions.
Okay, so we'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Vaquero.
No real question other than, Tom, is this another one? They were just squatting, the produce row was squatting over there? And
Yes.
that's wild.
To my knowledge, the answer is yes.
Yes, that's what, anyway, that was my only question. I just think it was interesting. I'm off now.
Okay, Alderwoman Navarro,
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan,
Thank you. Do we have any concept how long these folks have been squatting on the land?
Well, Alderman, I remember going up to Produce Row when I was in high school back in the 60s. So that's been there a very long time. I don't know when it was established, but it just they started parking. I'm guessing they just started parking their trucks there and nobody objected. So it's probably been, like I said, forever, and no one really had any concerns. And of course, they're not going to object because they're not paying anything for it. They did make some improvements, admittedly, down there with lighting and fencing around it, but it was established it was our property, so that's how we got where we are.
Okay. Has there been any discussion on them paying any sort of back rents?
Well, not to my knowledge. I mean, what happened was when we found them, we went out there and entered into negotiations with them and gave them a permit. They started paying immediately. And then we entered into this lease after a short period of time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Alderwoman Evans,
Yes, Alderman Narayan kind of sort of asked my question because I was wanting to know if there had been monies paid prior to the new lease now, but you're saying that there probably wasn't, right?
There were no monies paid prior to the permit when we established they were parking on our land. Once we established that it was our land and they were parking on it, they agreed to pay a permit fee, which was a reduced amount, not this I think it was $1,000 a month. But that was just in anticipation of getting a lease agreement with them. So I can't remember the exact amount, but it was around that. So they began to pay as soon as we said, hey, you owe us, but not before that, no.
Okay. And how soon did you find out that we owned it?
Well, as I said, this number 5 Clinton is an interesting piece of property. We own, the city owned this parcel of land and we leased it to I don't remember the name of it right now, but we leased it to a company who built this warehouse on it and leased it for 99 years. And then after that, they didn't leave it in the best of condition. Grossman was parking around it at the time that the lease expired, and they kind of gravitated on to it. We didn't pay any attention to it. And then we tried to lease the property, which time we started discovering it was not in that good of shape. So we tried to get somebody in there to improve it. The lease never happened. And I'd say 10 years expired. And then we finally got a lessee that was interested. Grossman was going to lease it, but that fell through because of COVID. And then the MRT SCF, the Municipal River Terminal, where SCF is your tenant there, needed it because of the flood. They had some steel coils in their warehouse down by the river that got flooded, so they needed to move them into the number 5 Clinton, which is right across the railroad tracks, the street, so to speak. So they took it. They took the interior, and then Grossman, who's still parking on the outside, agreed to that. At the same time, we discovered right across the street, down the street, is Produce Road, where they were squatting also. So that's how these all came together.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Great. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. I texted Chairman Cohn that it sort of feels like corporate moda own, these companies using city property, and, you said they made some improvements to it, and it's interesting to hear that that's happening. I mean, it makes sense that it's happening if the land is sort of vacant and they're using it, but it is great that, this is something that they're wanting to lease and move forward with a paid relationship with the city. So I think it sounds like companies that are, being good neighbors to us, and it seems like a good sign that they were willing to kind of move forward. So really appreciate any work that you all do to find companies like this and see if we can, get a reasonable amount of rent for land that they're using to do business. And I really do appreciate your time on this.
Mr. Chairman, I have a follow-up question, if I could.
Sure. Alderman Vaquero.
Tom, is the building still on the ground, and who's leasing the building, and who was the prior leasing of the building?
Well, Alderman, it's set vacant for about 10 years. I can't remember the name. The long-term tenant for the 99 years who built it, I can't remember the name of it right now. James, search number 5 Clinton and see if it pops up the name of the. I don't think it will because it's too old, but it would be a real old lease, Alderman. It's not in the Port District, so it would have been a city lease. There was no Port District 100 years ago, so it would have been a city lease for 99 years where they built it. And then they had parking around it, and that turnaround is on the north side where he would turn his trucks around and then bring them around behind and park it.
No, but I mean, is there still a building sitting there? Is a building going to fall down one of these days?
No, it's fall down. It's still there. It's not in the best of condition. I walked through the office. I don't think it's really inhabitable, but it's a very tall, like 2-story building, so you can use it for storage. There's cranes in there. I mean, it's very well done. It's just that it's not in good condition. And the SCF at the Municipal River Terminal had this flooding problem and it needed storage. The floor in this building is not that good either. So they could store steel coils in there. And when the river goes up and down, their warehouse down by the river is not that good. So they can go within, like, say, a football field and move this stuff into the number 5 Clinton and use that for storage.
So, I mean, so they're leasing the building that's there now?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I was confused in all that. I thought that we got a vacant derelict building sitting there.
Well, we did have a vacant derelict building for years. We tried to lease it and it didn't happen. And then Grossman wanted it and COVID came, that killed that deal. So then the MRT flooded and they needed it. So SCF is in there now under a permit, as I recall.
So but they're not leasing it. They're just in there.
I think the intent is that they will lease it. I don't remember doing a lease for them just as of yet, but I think they're in there under a permit now. We'll see how the conditions of the river going up and down are. I mean, they don't need it unless the river goes up and screws up their warehouse down on the river.
Well, I mean, are they insuring it? I mean, are we still liable if something happens to that thing, or are they insuring it, or what's going on?
The coils got wet and they moved them there. And I mean, that, like I said, somebody ran into the side of the building. We got a claim against, I think it's Grossman on that, but the SLDC has an insurance policy on their buildings, and the city has an insurance policy on the building that they own. So it's insured, but it's the city's insurance is not like your homeowner's insurance. It's you have an aggregate amount, let's say $10 million. And if everything blows up, you can fix the most important buildings up to $10 million. It's reverse of what you have like a deductible. Yours is, the city's is backwards, as I recall when I was there. But so I doubt that this building will be replaced. In fact, what we were trying to do, and somebody came in and wanted to tear it down and build a new building there. It was one of the bidders, but like I say, it didn't work out back in the COVID.
Well, I know
Like a year.
it doesn't have anything to do with Board Bill number 12, but it was a curious question. So Board Bill number 12 doesn't have anything to do with that building, but I'm just curious. It was more of a curious question, but we're sitting there with a building that's not leased to anybody and I assume reliable.
Well, it's under a permit now, as I recall, and it will be, I think SCF will lease it because they need it as a backup.
Okay, that was just more curious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. Any other questions of Mr. Page or Mr. Ray? Alderman Page, forgive me. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 21.
I'll make a motion to pass Board Bill 21 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 28th, and there's been a motion for previous roll. Is there an objection to previous roll? Hearing and seeing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 21 passes out with a due pass recommendation. We'll move on to item number 7, Board Bill number 44, Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, committee, I'm sorry. Board Bill 44 authorizes an amendment to Ordinance Number 68681, which ordinance authorized a new lease agreement with the city and ACL Transportation Services for mooring at or near Holly Avenue for a period of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options, and authorizes a third amendment to said lease agreement for the third 5-year mutual option for an increase in rent to $86,812.50 for the first year, $114,592.50 per year for the following 2 years, and $142,372.50 per year for the final 2 years. Tom is here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Great. Thank you, Alderwoman. We'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Vaquero.
No questions on this one.
Alderwoman Navarro.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, well, you're sponsoring it. Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from the peanut gallery? I think our colleagues might have dropped off here. No. Alderwoman Hubbard, Clark Hubbard, or Alderman Page, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 44.
I'll make a motion to pass Board Bill number 44 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
In previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 4th, that we do pass Board Bill number 44 out with a due pass recommendation. There's been a motion for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 44 passes out with a due pass recommendation. And we already took up Board Bill number 45. We'll take up Board Bill number 47. That's Alderman Coatar's Board Bill.
We still have 11 too, which is Coatar's.
Yeah.
That was number 1 on the agenda.
Great. Well, let's go back to the beginning then. So Alderman Coatar is no longer with us. Mr. Ray or Mr. Morrow, would you be able to fill us in on board bill number 11?
I'll take 11. It amends an existing ordinance 66935, which authorizes a First Amendment to an existing 25-year lease that began in 2006. It's an extension of the mutual option for one more 5-year period for land and mooring at or near the MacArthur and Poplar Street bridges for $21.70 per linear foot with an escalator. And let me see, it's the fourth 5-year option. And it's for a public supply operation and maintenance facility. That's what the mooring is for.
Okay, questions from the committee? Vice Chair Vaquero,
I don't have any on this one.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you. So this is essentially exercising the 5-year option, and is that what we're doing here?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay. And I guess similar question as I had before, anything that's been required to be provided to the city thus far in terms of representations, assessments, that sort of thing, are they current?
They are current. I should mention that this is a family-owned business, and the father died and the daughter has taken it over with her husband, and they have a certain clientele down there that they service. It's kind of like a working dock where they repair transmissions, repair barges, and things of that sort. And she came in and pled penury, and so the port director gave him a break on the beginning of the first 5 years, but she's going to step it up to the market rate in the after July of 22. So it goes up dramatically. Well, not dramatic. It goes up $3 a linear foot, but it does go up to the market rate after July of 2022.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan,
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans,
I see a price on here that's $21.70 per linear feet. So what does that round out to be for the annual fee?
Well, let's see how many feet it is. Well, now my computer will not pull a board bill up. James, can you get the board bill up and see how many linear feet it is so we can do the math?
Certainly, I'm scrolling through it now. I believe it's for about 530 linear feet.
So that'd be over 1,000 Well, it has to be more than that.
No, it's 11,500.
Okay. Yeah, 11,000, you're right, 11,500. And that's just the beginning. And then, as I said, that's the so-called penury reduced rate. And then the port director stepped it up to $30 in July of 22.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
Okay, thanks, Alderwoman. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking at the base rent and it looks like it steps up every year for the next 5 years, 1,000 a year.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, without any other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 11.
I'll make a motion, we pass Board Bill 11 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
There's been a motion by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 4th Ward that we pass out Board Bill number 11 with a due pass recommendation. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Seeing, hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 11 passes out with a due pass recommendation. All right, we will skip ahead on the agenda to item number 9, which is Board Bill number 47. Again, sponsored by Alderman Coatar, who had to step out. Mr. Morrow or Mr. Ray, would you be able to present on Board Bill number 47?
I'll try it. Board Bill 47 and Board Bill 48 are a result of the sale of Fred Weber's concrete operation down the wharf to a firm called New Frontier Materials Operations Alpha. And we're in an existing lease, and this is approving the assignments to them. And these are the extensions of, let's see, so the first one, 47 is the second option, and 48 is the second option, 47 is the first 5-year option at increased rents, considerably increased rents for both, for sand and ready mix operation.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Questions from the committee, Vice Chair Vaccaro?
Just curious, is Fred Weber not doing that anymore? I thought, because that's where we bought our material from also.
Well, Fred Weber is still in existence in other forms, but the concrete ready mix is moving on to this new materials. I don't know anything more about the sale other than what's been provided, but it appears to me that the concrete mix business is being sold.
Okay, I was just curious. I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Navarro?
I have no questions either. Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan had to take a meeting. I think he might be multitasking. Alderwoman Evans?
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer?
Thank you. My only question is, I think I heard this right, but I'm not 100%, so I want to check. This is the company that's selling these pieces in 47 and 48. I know we're just talking about 47. That's the same company that's getting the 5-year kind of reduction to end up at market rate?
No.
Okay.
Let me try again.
I guess I was looking at the wrong building because I was trying to understand if Fred Weber was involved in the one.
Fred Weber has the existing lease.
Okay.
Fred Weber's concrete business is going to be sold. The ready mix part of Fred Weber is going to be sold to this new materials, New Frontier Materials Operation Alpha is buying it. So you have to approve an assignment also, in addition to the extensions that I described. And the rent is increased because we're negotiating with Fred Weber. We increased the rent considerably on the buyer. I mean, the seller had no interest in, he didn't care if we were going to increase the rent. So we kind of increased it considerably. So it's definitely a fair market value. It's an old lease, that has been in existence. And in one case, it's in the first option, and the second, and the other one is in the second option. So you're stuck with the old standard provision, but because we're coming up with a mutual option, we can increase the rent to the new buyer.
Yeah, I see that it moves up kind of every year. Okay,
Yes.
that's great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I just want to kind of summarize that for people who might be watching those. So the lease agreement was with Fred Weber. Fred Weber is divesting part of their business because our previous lease was probably a standard lease that it provided for a 2% increase or something of that nature. The ability to renegotiate the lease at the time of transfer to a new assignee provides us the opportunity to increase to market rate instead of what was an incremental increase underneath the old lease or potential incremental increase underneath the old lease. So we're actually at a higher rate than we otherwise would have been. Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 47.
I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 47 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th. There's been a request for previous roll that we do pass Board Bill number 47 out. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing, seeing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 47 passes out with a due pass recommendation. And the last item on our agenda, item number 10, Board Bill number 48, also sponsored by Alderman Coatar. Mr. Ray, if you could wrap it up here with the last board bill related to Board Bill number 47.
Yeah, it amends Ordinance 67928, and it is the same as we described in 47, except we're going into the second option as opposed to the first, with an increased rent of $88,000 with a 2% escalator. The property is near Shoto and Convent Street with the MacArthur Bridge. And you're approving the assignment, as I said before.
Great. We'll take questions from the committee. Vice Chair Vaquero.
No questions.
Alderwoman Navarro.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Evans.
No questions.
Okay. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Alderman Page.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 48.
I'll make the motion. We pass Board Bill 48 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay, it's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 4th Ward that we do pass Board Bill number 48 out of committee. There's been a motion for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 48 passes out with a due pass recommendation. That is the rest of the items on our agenda. We don't have any resolutions to review. I have no committee discussions to partake in at this point in time and no announcements. I would like to ensure that we acknowledge that Alderman Boyd, what has been excused for necessary absence. And with that, the Transportation and Commerce Committee is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time this morning.